Yes, Your Majesty. Tea party at the palace, Your Majesty. Next Sunday at 4, Your Majesty. I'll be sure to bring a Victoria sponge, Your Majesty. Hello there. How are you? Okay, I'll stop messing around. I am just excited because we are going to be looking at the very famous Alice in Wonderland. Now, Alice in Wonderland was written by a Charles Dodgson, but he's better known by his pen name Lewis Carroll. Carroll was a mathematician, but in literary circles, he was famous for writing nonsense verse and nonsense poetry, much of which appears in the book itself. So, what are we going to look at? There's none other, is there? We have to look at the Mad Hatter's Tea Party. So, I hope you're sitting comfortably. I hope you've got the kettle on. Let's have a read.
There was a table set out under a tree in front of the house, and the March Hare and the Hatter were having tea at it. A dormouse was sitting between them, fast asleep, and the other two were using it as a cushion, resting their elbows on it and talking over its head.
Very uncomfortable for the dormouse,
thought Alice.
Only as it's asleep, I suppose it doesn't mind.
The table was a large one, but the three were all crowded together at one corner of it.
No room!
No room! No room!
They cried out when they saw Alice coming.
There's plenty of room,
said Alice indignantly, and she sat down in a large armchair at one end of the table.
Have some wine,
the March Hare said in an encouraging tone. Alice looked all around the table, but there was nothing on it but tea.
I don't see any wine,
she remarked.
Well, there isn't any,
said the March Hare.
Then it wasn't very civil of you to offer it,
said Alice angrily.
It wasn't very civil of you to sit down without being invited,
said the March Hare.
I didn't know it was your table,
said Alice.
It's laid for a great many more than 3.
Your hair wants cutting, said the Hatter. He had been looking at Alice for some time with great curiosity, and this was his first speech.
You should learn not to make personal remarks,
Alice said with some severity.
It's very rude.
The Hatter opened his eyes very wide on hearing this, but all he said was,
Why is a raven like a writing desk? Come, we shall have some fun now,
thought Alice.
I'm glad they've begun asking riddles. I believe I can guess that.
Do you mean that you think you can find the answer to it?
Said the March Hare.
Exactly so,
said Alice.
Then you should say what you mean,
the March Hare went on.
I do,
Alice hastily replied.
At least I mean what I say. That's the same thing, you know. Not the same thing a bit,
said the Hatter.
Why, you might just as well say that
I see what I eat
is the same thing as
I eat what I see.
You might just as well say,
added the Dormouse, which seemed to be talking in its sleep,
that I breathe when I sleep is the same thing as I sleep when I breathe.
It is the same thing with you,
said the Hatter. And here the conversation dropped, and the party sat silent for a minute, while Alice thought over all she could remember about ravens and writing desks, which wasn't much.
Spiffing stuff. Now I think we should go back to Tamar, who will be analysing the language and making it look like an absolute piece of cake. I'll see you next time.
Now I will teach you the words. Indignantly. Indignantly means in an angry way. There's plenty of room, said Alice indignantly, so she said it in an angry way. Civil. Civil means polite. It wasn't very civil of you to sit down without being invited, so the fact that she sat down wasn't polite. Remember the phrase, civil of someone to do something. Then it wasn't very civil of you to offer it. Remark. Remark is something that you say about somebody or something. For example, he made a number of rude remarks about the food. It means that he said a number of rude things about the food. Try to remember the phrase, to make a remark. Severity. Severity means seriousness. For example, the severity of the problem means the seriousness of the problem. Alice said with some severity means that Alice said it with some seriousness. Riddle is a question that is difficult to understand. It usually has a surprising answer. We ask riddles as a game.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and share our video and to subscribe to the channel.